And joining me in studio now to make sense of all of this is Kipchumba Karori, who is an advocate of the High Court. And joining me virtually is Charles Kanjama, also an advocate of the High Court. Charles, let me start with you. When you're talking constitutionally about what is the setup now between the Deputy President and his boss, President Uhuru Kenyatta, a very clear broken relationship between the two. What does this mean constitutionally?
Constitutionally, they remain stuck together because they were voted in together on the same ticket, unless Kenyans change their mind and impeach one or both of them. So they remain tied together at the hip, whether they are ready to work together or not. Of course, the president, as the principal in the executive or in the government of Kenya, has the role of assigning responsibilities to his deputy. And he can choose to assign some responsibilities or to assign no responsibilities, but he cannot choose who will be his deputy. So that is the current situation, Victoria.
And Kipchumba, when we're talking about the two working together or not, many are saying there's a lot of dysfunctionality in government. Recently, there's a daily that called some cabinet secretaries moles. By the time you get to that point, doesn't that just spell dysfunction and discord?
Yeah, it spells the infunctionality of the Jubilee government as a government holding together. But Victoria, you have to remember, where did this begin? When did the rain started beating Jubilee? It all began with having the so-called handshake and mixing politicization of the running of government, mixing politics and running of state. But we have to ask ourselves, going to the future, looking at the politician of William Ruto, he's a politician who you cannot just shed him off by just playing the theatrics we have seen, the handshake and what have you. You have to ask yourself, whatever was being done, was it being done in good faith of running a government, or it was being done in running a political agenda? And you have heard what Tuju has told us. Tuju has said in crystal clear that it is in furtherance of the goodwill in the handshake that they are bringing Jubilee and ODM together, which means the BBI thing was all political. It was just camouflage in all this. And it is because of this BBI, the handshake, that this government is dysfunctional. It is because of, after winning the 2017 election, that this and the handshake happened in 2018, that when the two came together, Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, we thought the government will function better and robustly. But what we have seen is confusion, people taking sides. We now have a side where people are saying there is a cabinet that belongs to William Ruto, the other one belongs to Uhuru Kenyatta. I think that is where we are in this morass.
And Charles, as you're watching all of this play out, it no longer seems that the political parties act is actually working. When you look at more developed democracies, there's an actual respect for structures, for discipline. Why isn't that being done in this scenario?
I think, Victoria, there's been this development where Kenyans are concerned that they were fraudulently registered into political parties when the parties were applying for full registration from the registrar of political parties. It seems these parties, not all of them, but a number of them, even from their founding, were founded on fraud. And we also know that in the last 5 years, most parties have failed to hold their party elections, which they were meant to have done in this 5-year period. So the parties themselves have become merchants of impunity in terms of facilitating internal democracy and accountability. And it is no surprise that externally, even the politicians who belong to these parties treat them as vehicles that can be discarded from time to time, depending on whether they promote their current agenda. But let me clarify that under Section 14 of the Political Parties Act, parties that are part of a coalition are exempted from some of the other rules that apply to parties that are not in a coalition. So for as long as UDA and Jubilee remain in a coalition, a member of Jubilee is allowed to advocate or promote the ideology, interests, or policies of UDA and vice versa. But when the parties are not in a coalition, like Jubilee and the parties in the NASA coalition, respectively, then this is not allowed. In fact, Section 14(5) of the Political Parties Act says this will be deemed as a member retiring or exiting from being a member of the party, that he has stopped advocating its ideology in favor of another. So that is the position of the law.
Certainly, we will be seeing what those implications mean moving forward. A year to the general election next year. Thank you so much, Charles Kanjama and Kipchumba Karori. That's all the time we have.